first time Arman saw the cave, he felt something inside him go quiet. Not peaceful quiet, not the kind that comes from standing in a beautiful place and forgetting your worries. This was the other kind. The kind that arrives when a place looks at you first. The kind that makes the air feel heavier, like the mountain has noticed your presence and is deciding whether to let you leave in one piece. And that was exactly why, before this story goes any deeper, stay with it. Because what happened in that cave did not just scare one man. It changed the way an entire village looked at the dark forever. If stories like this pull you in, then like it, share it with someone who loves mystery, and subscribe so you keep getting more stories that feel like they were pulled out of the edge of the world. Arman was not a foolish man, at least not in the way people usually meant it. He was careful with money, careful with words, careful with his work, and careful with the people he trusted. He had spent most of his life in a small mountain village where everyone knew everyone, where every path had a story attached to it, and where even the children grew up hearing warnings about places that should never be entered after sunset. But Arman had one weakness. He hated being told no. He had grown up hearing about the cave above the old ridge, a place the villagers called the Hollow Mouth. Some said it was a shelter from ancient times. Some said traders once hid there during storms. Some said the mountain had swallowed men who entered with greed in their hearts. The older people never explained too much. They only said the same thing in different ways. Do not go in alone, do not go in after dusk, and never, never follow a sound if it starts calling your name from inside. Arman had laughed at those stories when he was younger. He laughed less as he got older, but he never fully stopped. He worked as a repairman and guide for visiting hikers. He knew the mountain paths better than most. He knew which rocks loosened after rain, which stream crossings were safe, and which areas lost signal first. Because of that, when a group of travelers came to the village asking about the cave, Arman was the one they asked. They had seen photos online, just a few blurred images, dramatic captions, and the kind of posts that turned forgotten places into internet legends. They wanted to explore it. They wanted content, adventure, proof that they had been somewhere forbidden. The village elders refused to guide them. Arman, being Arman, thought the elders were overreacting. The cave was probably dangerous in the ordinary way: slippery stones, low ceilings, maybe old pockets of bad air. He told the group he would take them partway up, but he would not enter. That was the plan. The plan changed the day before they were supposed to go. A sudden storm hit the mountain. Heavy rain tore across the slopes, and a landslide blocked the main trail. The travelers panicked and left the village by morning. Arman went to inspect the damage. Near the ridge, he found something unusual: a narrow opening revealed by the shifting earth, hidden behind a curtain of roots and broken stone. It was not the main entrance to the Hollow Mouth. It was smaller, darker, and so still that it seemed to drink the light around it. Arman stood there for a long time, staring. He told himself the opening was nothing, just another crack in the mountain. But then he saw markings on the stone near the entrance, faded symbols, old enough that the edges had softened with time. The same symbols his grandfather used to trace in the dirt when warning children about places they should avoid. That should have been enough to turn him away. Instead, he stepped closer. Later, when people asked him why he went in, he could never give one answer. Curiosity, pride, the need to prove the old stories were only stories, maybe all of them, or maybe something darker and simpler. He wanted to know what it felt like to stand in the place everyone feared and leave it untouched by fear. He took only a flashlight, a coil of rope, and a small knife. He did not tell anyone where he was going. He told himself he would only look inside for a few minutes, then come back before sunset. The cave accepted him without sound. That was the first strange thing. Most caves tell you they are caves. Their mouths drip with water, their floors crunch with loose stones, their wind whistles through cracks. This cave felt sealed, almost waiting. The air inside was cool but not fresh. It had the smell of wet earth, old dust, and something faintly metallic like rainwater running over rust. Arman shone his light ahead. The passage was narrow at first, forcing his shoulders close to the stone walls. The surface was uneven, full of ridges that looked almost hand-carved. A few meters in, the tunnel widened into a chamber with a ceiling so high he could barely see it. His beam caught on glittering mineral veins in the rock, and for a second the walls looked as if they were threaded with frozen lightning. He almost smiled. Nothing supernatural, nothing alive, just geology, he told himself. Then he heard footsteps behind him. He turned so fast the light jerked across the floor. Nothing. He stood still, listening. The cave was silent except for the tiny drip of water somewhere far away. He laughed at himself, a short, embarrassed sound, and started walking again. But the hairs on the back of his neck had already risen. The deeper he went, the more the cave changed. The walls narrowed and widened without pattern. Some corridors sloped upward only to drop suddenly into smooth stone ramps. He found old soot stains as though fires had burned there generations ago. He found a broken clay shard, then a second, then a piece of fabric so old it crumbled when he touched it. Arman took notes in his phone, not because he was thinking like a scientist, but because he wanted to be the one who discovered something. He wanted proof. He wanted a story to tell later, a story that would make the old villagers shake their heads and say they had warned him. The tunnel bent sharply to the left and opened into a chamber with a ceiling painted in darkness. His flashlight swept over what looked like faded murals, figures holding torches, animals with elongated legs, and circles inside circles that might have been stars or eyes. He moved closer, heart quickening. The paintings were old, older than the village itself, maybe older than the road that led to it. And then he saw the doorway. It was not a real doorway. It was an opening cut into the rock, rectangular and neat, too deliberate to be natural. Inside it, complete darkness. Around it, a rim of pale mineral growth that made it look like the cave had stitched a wound and failed to hide the scar. Arman approached slowly. There was a fresh scratch on the stone beside the opening. Not old, fresh. His first thought was that an animal had made it. His second thought came a second too late. The line was too straight. He knelt and touched it. Stone dust clung to his fingers. Someone had been here recently. That should have been the moment he turned back. Instead, he stepped through. Beyond the opening was a smaller chamber, almost circular. The ceiling dipped low. In the center stood a pillar of stone that looked natural until he noticed the carved grooves spiraling around it like a rope wrapped too tightly around a post. At the base of the pillar was a pile of objects, old coins, a rusted bracelet, a child's shoe with the leather split open, and a bundle of dried reeds tied with faded red thread. Arman swallowed. The air in that room felt different, denser, not poisonous exactly, but crowded, as if the space had been occupied for a very long time and never fully emptied. He raised the flashlight and saw another opening at the far side of the chamber. Then he froze, because the opening behind him, the one he had just come through, was gone. Not closed, gone. There was only solid rock where the doorway had been. At first his mind refused to accept it. He walked back, shining the light over the wall, feeling with both hands, pressing his palm against cold stone. It was seamless. No seam, no crack, no edge, nothing. He stumbled backward, pulse hammering, and swung the beam around the chamber. There had to be another exit. Every cave had another exit. He looked at the second opening ahead of him, and for a moment he did not understand what he was seeing. It was moving. Not physically like a door swinging, but somehow the shape of it seemed to shift when he blinked. The edges blurred, then sharpened. The darkness inside it deepened as if something inside were breathing. Arman laughed once, a sharp, broken sound that sounded wrong in that room. "Okay," he whispered to himself. "Okay, calm down, think." He reached into his pocket for his phone, No signal, of course no signal. He tried the flashlight again, then checked the battery. Full. He forced himself to breathe slower. Maybe the cave was turning him around. Maybe he had misread the passage. Maybe the first opening had been hidden behind a shadow. Panic made people stupid, and he refused to be stupid. He touched the stone pillar. The moment his fingers made contact, the cave answered. A low sound rolled through the chamber. Not a growl, not a voice, but something deeper, like the mountain shifting in its sleep. The dried bundle at the base of the pillar trembled. Dust slid from the ceiling in a soft shower. Arman jerked his hand away. Then from somewhere beyond the room, he heard his name. Arman. He went cold. The voice was faint, male, and strangely familiar. He turned in a full circle, light shaking. Who is there? Silence. Then again, softer this time, almost kindly. Arman. He backed toward the pillar, heart beating so hard he felt it in his throat. His first instinct was to shout for help, but the cave made every sound feel small and weak. Instead, he listened, trying to identify direction. The voice had not come from the front chamber. It had seemed to rise from the walls themselves. He thought of the old warning, never follow a sound that starts calling your name from inside. His mouth went dry. A memory came back to him then, one he had not thought about in years. He was a child, maybe 7 or 8, sitting beside his grandfather on a winter night while the wind pressed against the wooden shutters. He had asked why the elders feared the cave so much. His grandfather had not answered directly. Instead, he said, "Some places do not want to be found. They let you enter to see whether you will respect the door." At the time, Arman thought it was nonsense. Now, standing inside a room where the exit had vanished, it felt less like nonsense and more like a warning he had ignored. He moved toward the second opening. As he approached, the shape changed again. The darkness inside seemed to stretch, not inward but outward, like a mouth opening wider than it should. He shone the flashlight through. The beam should have hit stone beyond, but it did not. It vanished inside the blackness as if swallowed. Arman stepped back immediately. He was alone, truly alone, and not in the ordinary sense. He felt it in the way the room listened to him. He felt it in the silence between his breaths. He felt it in the terrible certainty that the cave was aware of him. He tried to remember the way he had come, mapping the route in his head. Left turn after the chamber with the murals, down slope, narrow ridge. The opening had been behind him, but now that path was gone, erased as if the mountain had never allowed it to exist. "Okay," he said out loud, forcing the words through his fear. "No problem, just find the way, that's all." He began circling the chamber, hands against the wall. Cold stone, uneven stone, then smooth stone, then rough stone again. At one point he found a slit in the rock just wide enough for his fingers, but it led nowhere. Another place revealed a tunnel only a few feet deep, ending in a solid wall. He checked the pillar again and found fresh scratches on its side he had not noticed before. Marks that looked like repeated finger drags, as if someone had tried to climb it. The chamber was not empty. He became aware of something else. There were footprints in the dust. His own, clear as day near the entrance of the room, but not only his. Smaller ones, bare feet, perhaps from a child. They circled the pillar and ended abruptly halfway across the floor, as though whoever made them had simply stopped existing. Arman's breathing turned shallow. Then he heard it again, a sound this time, not a voice, a slow dragging step from behind the far wall. He turned. Nothing. Another sound, closer. He swept the flashlight across the stone, and for the briefest instant he saw a shadow move where no body stood. It was tall, too thin, and bent in a way that suggested not posture but hunger. His legs nearly gave out. He ran. He did not know where. Not forward, not backward, just away. He hit a narrow passage and rushed through it, scraping his shoulder on the stone. The tunnel dipped and twisted. Water splashed under his boots. He could hear the dragging sound following him, not fast but patient. That was worse. Anything that ran after you could be escaped. Anything that walked after you with certainty was far more dangerous. The passage opened into another room larger than the first. Here the floor was scattered with stones and old bones. Human bones, some long, some tiny. A skull lay on its side near the wall, mouth frozen open as if in eternal surprise. Arman nearly retched. In the center of the room was a pit. A deep black pit surrounded by a ring of carved symbols. And over that pit hung a rope ladder, decayed and half-broken, descending into darkness. A way out. He thought wildly, a lower level, a shaft, something. He shone the flashlight downward, but the beam stopped after a few meters and seemed to disappear into thick black air. No sound came back from below, not even dripping water. Behind him, the dragging sound stopped. The silence was so immediate that it felt intentional. Arman did not turn around. He backed toward the pit, trying to keep his eyes on the tunnel behind him, but he could feel something in the room change. The air pressed against his skin. The flashlight flickered once. Then a whisper brushed his ear. "Don't look." He screamed and spun around anyway. Nothing stood there. Nothing visible. But the dark beside the wall moved like fabric under a hand. He stumbled, hit the carved ring around the pit, and nearly fell in. His flashlight slipped from his grip and rolled to the edge, its beam spinning wildly across the chamber. In that spinning light, he saw it. Not a monster from stories. Not a dragon, not a ghost with claws. Just a shape that made less sense than any of those. It was human only in outline, long-limbed and wrong at the joints, as though its body had been assembled from remembered pieces. Its face was not a face but a blur, except for the mouth, which was too wide and held in a fixed, patient expression. Arman did the only thing his body allowed. He ran again. This time he went toward the pit, because there was nowhere else left. He grabbed the broken rope ladder and climbed down with shaking hands. The rope burned his palms. Stones cut his knees. Above him, the chamber darkened as the thing leaned over the edge. He did not look up. He did not dare. The shaft seemed endless, but at the bottom his feet hit a damp floor. He lurched forward and nearly fell. He found himself in a tunnel lower than the rest, a passage that sloped steeply downward into absolute black. A wind moved through it. Fresh air. His hope flared so violently it almost hurt. There was an exit somewhere ahead. There had to be. He ran toward the draft, half crawling where the tunnel narrowed, the walls scraping his shoulders raw. His lungs burned. His flashlight blinked on and off, each beam revealing only more rock and darkness. Then the tunnel widened, and he saw daylight. Not sunlight exactly, but a pale silver glow from beyond a crack in the stone. Arman cried out in relief and scrambled forward. The opening was narrow, but wide enough if he turned sideways. He forced himself through, stone grinding against his ribs, and emerged into a slanted crevice filled with cold air. For one breath, he thought he was free. Then the world outside shifted. The glow vanished. The crack sealed itself behind him with a sound like a sigh. Arman stumbled forward and fell onto his hands and knees in complete darkness. He turned around, pounding at the place he had just come through. Solid rock. Solid, seamless rock. "No," he whispered. He was not in a tunnel anymore. He was in a small chamber with no visible exit, the floor slick with moisture, the ceiling low enough that he had to bend. The cave had not released him. It had merely moved him deeper. That was the moment terror changed into something else. Desperation. A raw animal need to live. He screamed then, shouted, cursed, begged, and the mountain answered only with silence. He pulled himself up and began searching every inch of the room. He found carvings on the walls, all in a language he did not know, but one symbol repeated over and over, an eye with a split pupil. Near the floor, hidden under a stone ledge, he discovered a shallow hollow containing ashes and tiny bones. Beside them lay a metal pendant shaped like a crescent moon. It was warm when he picked it up. Warm. His blood ran cold all over again. The pendant had been placed there recently, maybe by someone else who had been trapped, maybe by someone who had left it as a mark, maybe by something that liked to keep tokens. Arman wrapped his fingers around it and felt a faint vibration, almost like a pulse. Then he heard voices. Not one, several. Some were crying, some were laughing. One was his mother's voice calling him from far away, though his mother had been dead for 3 years. He shut his eyes hard, pressing the pendant to his chest. "It's not real," he whispered. "It's not real." But the voices kept coming, surrounding him in the dark, moving around him in circles. Names, pleas, memories. The cave was trying to pull him apart from the inside, not with claws but with sound. He remembered the old people again, not just warnings but the way they refused to speak certain names near the cave. They had known this place did not only trap bodies, it trapped attention, it trapped fear, it used the human mind as a doorway. Arman forced himself to think of one thing only: light. The flashlight had died. He remembered it falling near the pit. He searched his pockets, nothing but his knife and the crescent pendant. Knife. That was when he got an idea so desperate it felt stupid, but stupid ideas sometimes save lives. He began striking the knife against the rock wall hard and fast, trying to make sparks against the mineral veins. Once, twice, again and again. His knuckles split, his wrists shook. On the 6th or 7th strike, a tiny spark flashed and died. He struck again. Another spark, then another. A faint draft brushed his face. Not from ahead, from above. He looked up. High in the ceiling, hidden in shadow, was a crack no wider than his hand. Not enough to climb through, perhaps, but enough to feel air. Enough to prove that the cave was not completely sealed. He jumped, grabbed the wall, searched for footholds. There were none visible, but the rock had small ledges and rough ridges where his fingers could catch. He climbed with the stubbornness of a man too afraid to die. Once he slipped and slammed his shoulder against stone. Pain shot down his arm. He ignored it. He climbed higher, inch by inch, until his fingers reached the crack. Cold air rushed over them. With the last strength in his body, Arman shoved the knife blade into the crack and twisted. Stone gritted. A thin line of dust fell into his face. He jammed his fingers into the opening and pulled. At first nothing moved. Then a tiny piece of rock broke free. Then another. The crack widened just enough for him to force his shoulder through. He cried out in pain as the edges scraped him open, but he kept pushing. Behind him, the voices rose into a furious whispering. The chamber shook. Dust fell in sheets. Something was coming. Arman wedged himself into the crack and crawled, scraping through a passage so tight he thought his bones might break. He did not care. He wriggled forward on blind instinct, face against rock, chest burning, knees torn raw. The tunnel curved upward, then sharply left, then upward again. The air grew colder. The whispers faded behind him, replaced by a rushing sound like wind in a chimney. Then suddenly, his hand broke through into open air. He pushed harder and tumbled onto wet grass under a sky full of stars. For several seconds, he did not move. He lay there gasping, filthy, bleeding, half inside a crevice on the side of the mountain, half on the slope above the village. Rain had stopped. The world looked ordinary. Trees swayed in the night wind. Crickets sang. Somewhere below, a dog barked. Arman laughed and cried at the same time, a sound so broken that it frightened him. He had made it out. He turned and looked back at the opening he had crawled through. There was no cave entrance there. Only a smooth wall of stone covered in moss. No crack, no tunnel, no trace. He stared at it until his vision blurred. By morning, he was found by shepherds on the lower trail, exhausted, feverish and unable to speak clearly. They took him to the village. When he finally told them where he had been, the elders did not act shocked. They looked grim, almost resigned, as if some old debt had been settled in the only way the mountain knew how. One of the oldest men in the village asked him one question. "What did it call you with?" Arman answered without understanding why the question mattered. "My name." The old man closed his eyes. "You were lucky," he said. "It uses names first, then memories, then the path." Arman never returned to the hollow mouth, not even to look at it. The villagers sealed the known entrances with stone and prayer, though no one believed stone and prayer were enough. After that, the village children were told the story not as a legend, but as a warning. Not all dangers announce themselves with teeth. Some wait until you are curious enough to step in alone. Years later, Arman still woke some nights hearing a voice outside his window, soft and patient, saying his name as if calling him home. He never answered. He never opened the door. He learned the most important lesson of his life too late, but not too late to live with it. Some places are not asking to be explored. Some doors are not there to be opened. And some darkness does not chase you because it hates you. It chases you because you listened. So let this be the moral of the story. Curiosity is powerful, but wisdom is what keeps curiosity alive. Not every mystery deserves your fearless step, and not every silence should be broken just because you are brave enough to do it. Sometimes survival is not about going deeper. Sometimes it is about turning back while the exit is still yours.